Hey everyone, welcome back to the Creator Cafe. I'm your host, Tyler Mawad, and we actually don't have a guest today. I guess I can be the guest, but yeah, this episode I wanted to actually delve into my own creative process along with my story and the goals that I have for the future. Because, each episode of Creator Cafe we talk about primarily what the guest has experienced in their creative world as well as their background. But I really wanted to address my own story and where I come from along with my own creative background because I feel like there isn't really content out about me just yet. And I figured most of the people watching may not know who exactly I am. And for the small percentage that know me in person, then they already know pretty much my creative background, but not my entire story either. So I thought I'd take the time today to give a little bit about myself. And complete transparency, this episode has been recorded about twice already. This is my third time attempting to record this episode. First time, ran out of storage on my SD card, so that cut the episode short. Second time, I forgot to turn the mic on, so there was no audio in the 30-minute video that I recorded, so yeah. And plus, my camera ran out of battery too, so I had to charge that. So anyways, what I did want to do though is stay committed to making this video because it's along the path towards where I want to reach in my future, and I figured it was kind of like a symbolic moment for me, like deciding to record this again for the third time because I have a limited time right now. I don't even know if this episode might be cut short, but yeah, I wanted to really stay committed to making this episode. Kind of symbolizes how I plan to stay committed to all my future projects, which I'll mention later. So anyways, let's talk about my background first. For me, I define myself primarily as a portrait photographer. I started portrait photography about 4 years now, almost at least. In January, I think that'll make 4 years because, yeah, I started way back a few years ago. My neighbor and I actually went out to take photos in the hills nearby, and that's kind of how I got started into portrait photography. Before that, I was actually doing nature photos, taking pictures of landscapes and plants and birds, and maybe I'll probably edit in an old photo that I took from years ago. But yeah, that's where I come from as far as photography. But aside from that, I also dabble in pixel art, and literally just last night I purchased Procreate on my iPad, so I want to get a little bit more into digital art, and I'm excited for that. I was creating a couple things last night, and it turns out I'm better than I thought I was, so yeah, that'll be cool. I also write. So back in 7th grade, I was working on a novel that actually never got finished. So I ended up writing about 8 chapters and 11,000 words, but before high school happened, I hit a large writer's block, and I never really touched the novel ever again, except when I occasionally read it to see what I wrote. But anyways, I am actually getting back into writing now. I have a brand new idea for a new story. Probably not going to finish the old one from middle school anytime soon because I'm pretty inspired with the new idea that I have now. I'm currently fleshing out the world and things like that. Thanks, Mel, for getting back into the writing space, I guess. And I also am planning to launch a tech venture. So that is something that's been in the works for a few months at least, as far as behind the scenes stuff. I need to work on infrastructure, probably rearrange and revise what I currently have in place. Also, my printer is broken, so I gotta figure out how I'm gonna sort that out. But yeah, so that is coming soon as well, hopefully, after I revise everything, but I'm not going to reveal it just yet. I did mention it a little bit back in episode 5 of Creator Cafe with Mel. Aside from that, I also founded MPS back in 2017. and it stands for Models and Photographers Society. Basically, a whole countrywide community of young creators, and we host meetups basically for all of us to just hang out, take some photos, have a good time. And it's really cool because the community it ranges in a variety of skill levels. So we have, professional photographers, models, videographers, stuff like that. So the pros, the people that do it as, like a living and more than just like a hobby, and then we also, on the other side of that, we also have people that just want some cool photos for their Instagram. So we get all sorts of, demographics, and I think that's really cool. I actually passed that on to Justina Brandt, and she is currently the director of MPS. She's doing a fantastic job. Like, I don't give her enough credit, but if she's watching this, thank you, Justina, for everything that you do. Really appreciate it. And yeah, she's taking MPS to like a whole new level, and I'm still a part of the team, helping with advisory stuff and kind of behind the scenes a little bit. And yeah, so that's my creative background. So you can see I have quite a spread of different things, photography, arts, writing, and then creating businesses too. So that's quite a variety of topics. Yeah, aside from my creative things, I am also a student currently. I am planning to transfer to UCI next fall and get my public health degree. And actually, yeah, I'll mention this a little bit. I did mention it in another episode, but I was in New York, upstate New York, attending college there in a direct entry physician assistant program. So 5-year course, no, not 5-year course, 5-year program. Basically 3 years to get your bachelor's and 2 years after that to get your master's. So you have like a double whammy, I guess. Yeah, once in a lifetime opportunity because you apply right after high school, and that's why it's called like direct entry. And I applied 8, got into all 8. You had to interview and write some essays, to get into those things. But yeah, I ended up picking Lemoyne because they gave the most in scholarships. But, when I was out there, I was just really unhappy, not in a good mental space. And to add on to that, it was pretty isolating out there. Like, we're literally on top of a hilltop, civilization is kind of far, at least if you don't have a car. And I didn't have a car. My car's out here in California. And, it just the whole isolation thing up there, it really added on top of, me being already unhappy with being there. So ultimately, I decided to choose my happiness over the program, and that's why I came back to California to pursue my education out here. And more about my future later, because I do have a separate whole topic about that, but yeah, pretty much, so that's my creative background and my academic background, basically. Aside from that, running, I need to get back into running. I'm pretty out of shape right now, but running has actually played quite a large role in my life as well, especially being inspired by my grandparents who would literally travel around the world together and run marathons. Like, they went to Athens, London, Honolulu, all over the place and ran marathons together, which is really cool. That inspired me in 8th grade to run the LA Marathon. So that was cool. And plus, I did track and cross country and things. Something I definitely want to get back into. Just running in general, I guess. So yeah, that's my entire background. So now you know more about me that you didn't know before, hopefully. Alright, regarding my future is the second topic I wanted to discuss. So honestly, okay, I'm going to have probably a separate video about this whole thing too, plus I've mentioned it a little bit before in a previous episode of Creative Cafe, but I don't want to be a physician assistant like that. Honestly, quite frankly, never really was my end goal, but yeah, more on that in another video. So My current plan, however, is to get my public health degree from UCI, as I mentioned, and from there, technically, I have 3 years to finalize this. Even though I pretty much already finalized my decision recently, but I graduate, right? Get my public health degree. I have a couple options. Either I continue on to PA school, as I had planned when I was in New York to be a PA, or get my public health degree, right, and take that and no more academic education, and instead find a job with a pretty lucrative job with a public health degree. And I am choosing the latter. So here's why. So I'm going to get a job with a public health degree, and then from there I'm going to use the funding from that in order to fuel my other ventures that I'm working on currently, and hopefully by the time the 3 years is over, I'll have built at least some of them to a substantial level at least. I mean, to where once I'm at that level, it'll be easier than building from scratch, and I can continue to build it once I have my degree as well, and more funding coming in from an actual job. And also the funding from that public health job would also fund my lifestyle, just to live, food, gas, and I also wanted to save up for a down payment on a home right after that. So yeah, that's the current plan, because I'm really tempted to just make this video about my reasoning as to why, but I do want to have a separate video about everything regarding that, so I'm going to try to keep it short here. But basically, being a PA wasn't my end goal, never really was, and instead what I did want to be a PA for was the money, and that's probably not the best reason to pursue such a profession, but I needed that money because I wanted to use that to funnel into my other ventures, and so I can do the things that I really want to do with my life. But instead, I'm going to do a similar path, except not taking that kind of extra bit of schooling, I guess, in order to reach that, because I can actually just do that without being a PA. There's other ways I didn't realize. I guess I knew that they existed, but I hadn't explored them just yet. I didn't really know I had this option because just familial pressures and all. But really, I'm really deciding for myself, what do I want to do with my life, and I'm really putting that at the forefront rather than living the life that someone else would want me to live, I guess. Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, I have never been so much more happier and confident in my decision that I'm currently taking. It was really just so liberating when I finalized those thoughts. I was telling my friend Nikki, yeah, this is what I want to do, and I'm super, you could just feel it, it was I did it, I figured it out, because since I got home in February, it's already September, I've had so much time to reflect on myself and really discover, what am I here for? What do I want to do with my future? And really come to terms with putting myself at the forefront in front of my own goals and aspirations and happiness, what I want to pursue, and not, what family members would want me to pursue and things like that. But yeah, those are my current plans for my future. I have a huge master plan for decades. The next few decades have something in them that I want to do, but I'm not going to reveal those yet. I kind of just want to have those for me to keep track of. But another thing that I wanted to discuss was actually kind of going back to all the projects and creative ventures that I have going on. So I would consider myself a jack of all trades, I guess. I forgot if I mentioned that earlier in this video, because I did in previous takes of this video, but I don't know if I did in this one. But basically, I'm having all of these different projects and things, or at least ideas for them, if anything. And I'm not an expert at any particular one. I'm pretty spread out. And the thing with me, I could not solely do one thing in my life. There is no absolute way. I could not just do one thing my whole life. I don't know how people find fulfillment in that, and that's cool for them. But for me personally, my happiness comes from doing multiple things. And honestly, there's just so much to do in life. There's so much opportunity and things that haven't been discovered that I want to check out for myself, and I don't want to be limited. I want to experience everything. So, going back to the jack of all trades thing. So, currently, I am devoting the same amount of attention and time and effort, energy into all the projects equally. And it kind of worked at first. It was I get to work on so many different things, and that kept me engaged. But honestly, thing with putting the same amount of attention, equal attention, for every single project, and there's at least 6, it was ultimately detrimental because I would make tiny progress on a whole lot of things rather than large progress on 1 to 2 things. And honestly, that was the plan, that was, yeah, that makes sense, let me try that. But then, I'm not making enough substantial progress on these projects. Plus, it turns out that quite a bit of them require more focus than I'm currently allocating towards them. For instance, I wanted to develop an AI, not for the tech venture, but for a whole separate thing. Thing is, for that, I would need to learn coding, and that obviously takes, quite a bit of time, and quite frankly, not what I'm currently allocating towards that. I need to allocate a lot more if that's something that I really want to do. Likewise, with writing the book, I need to spend more time, devoting to planning out the storyline, the plot, and the character development, and actually writing the book. So, there's more time that needs to go into that. Likewise, even the tech venture itself, I need to, honestly, if you launch a startup, that's supposed to be your priority, right? You really need to buckle down and make and build it up from scratch, from the ground. It has to be your primary focus. But honestly, it's been with every other one of my projects at an equal priority. So I guess that attributes to why it hasn't launched yet, even though I had scheduled a launch at least a month ago, in August, I think. But I'm shifting this mindset now, and instead of putting equal priority on every project. Oh, by the way, I should note that I noted this in a previous take, but that school is not included in this project list. School is its own separate thing that I'm always working on, and I'm not including it in my list of projects that I'm currently talking about as far as the priorities. It is a priority, but it's a separate priority then. So there's school priority and then there's project priority. So going back to the projects. So my plan now is to instead put primary focus on 1 to 2 of these projects, because I feel like doing so will align me closer to my goals in the future. Because if I can build something more substantial within this time period, and really hone in on 1 to 2 things, then it'll be more likely that I'll reach a certain foundation by the time I do have my public health degree and I start, entering like the real life world. But in the meantime, but also under that, all the other projects will be worked on as well, but not nearly to the extent as the primary projects that I'm putting now at the forefront. And one of those is obviously the tech venture, which, it's called Delam Tech. It's my last name, Delam, Malad, Delam Tech. Anyways, yeah, that is gonna have to launch soon, but I do want to revise a ton of things in it. Probably find a CTO as well. But anyways, yeah, I'm really gonna put 1-2 things at the forefront instead of giving everything equal priority. I think having a priority, in like 1-2 things is actually much more beneficial than I initially thought. And I'm glad that, I've had the experience of trying what I thought would work, which was, devoting equal time and energy into all of them at once. But yeah, they really require, each one kind of requires more. Like, for instance, if you had 100% attention to allocate to 6 projects, but then each project requires, like 80% of that 100%, then you can't really give 80% to 6 different projects if you only have, 100% to allocate, if that makes sense. Like, the math doesn't work out. But yeah, I'm glad I'm gonna try this new direction. So we'll see how it goes. The last thing I really wanted to touch upon, and it's actually honestly the primary reason that I'm making this particular video, I'm making this in order to keep future me accountable. So, because if this video is basically immortalized on the internet, then I can, past me right now, can keep future me accountable for his actions. And so can anyone viewing this video, actually. So I basically want to hold myself accountable in terms of keeping up with my goals and projects. Thing is, I am a thinker. I think a lot. And the thing is, I need to be more of a doer, because it's great to have, all the ideas that I do, but if I don't actually take the action to make them a reality, then they'll just stay as thoughts in my head, So future me, you need to make sure that you're on the right track in order to make the future that we visualize every single damn day a reality, because without our actions, then that reality won't come true, and we really need to devote that time and energy into making it happen. Yeah, I just remember earlier in the second take that I was recording this, like, I got a little bit emotional. Like, I said something similar in a future, like, to my future self, but yeah, it really hit me at that moment. Like, I really need to commit to this and take action. So that's honestly why this is take number 3, because I wanted to prove to myself that I'm committed to making this happen. And, this video is just one of the many things that are going to be a part of this pathway, but it's absolutely necessary that I commit to even like small videos like this, and yeah, I'm quite proud of myself that I am taking the third take on this and not just brushing it off and maybe not revisiting this video. But yeah, now we have an episode 8, and it's of me. Like, if I didn't do this third take, episode 8 may have been with our next guest. Yeah, I think I pretty much covered everything that I wanted to cover. It just, future me, I know you're watching, because I'm definitely gonna be watching this over to myself, because to remind myself of where I want to be, the lifestyle I want to live, It all starts now. Like, I need to start taking the action to make it a reality, because we have limited time, and that's why I want to do so many things in the first place. We have limited time, and we need to use it wisely and use it to the best of our ability. Of course, there's going to be down days, lazy days, dog days, but overall, it's really important that we take the action, because so many thoughts and ideas will stay thoughts and ideas unless you really take that action. I know I've kind of repeated the same phrasing pretty much like a few times already in the last 10 minutes, but I'm really trying to nail into my head we just got to do it, because I have a huge master plan for the decades to come, for the empire I want to build, for the amount of people I want to impact positively, the lives I want to change. I want to change my life too. And yeah, this is just the first step. Anyways, thank you everyone if you stayed till the end for tuning into today's episode of Creative Cafe. Really glad that I took the third take to record this, because I think it's going to be really valuable. Even if not many people watch this, I know a future me will really find value in this, because today is, what is today anyways? Today is September 5th, 2020, and I want to be able to look back, maybe a month from now, maybe a decade from now, years from now, who knows, but it'll be really interesting to see where I take everything, all my projects and my ambitions. Anyways, yeah, thanks for tuning in today, and see you guys in the next video. Peace.